Thinking of how I used to code when I had less experience and how I see some inexperienced software developers code and work makes me think of this metaphor of this drawing I'm about to draw. So we'll consider two software developers. There'll be Bob and Alice. Bob is the inexperienced one, Alice is the experienced software developer. They're both given the same. They'll be both implementing the same feature. The start is here, and the finish line, the finish circle, is somewhere here. Alice is the same. Obviously, nobody wants to work for a company that gives the same feature to be implemented by two people. This is just a hypothetical example. Bob starts implementing his feature. Bob is aware that there are some obstacles between the start and the finish line. These obstacles, I'll draw them as walls here. They are things you can do, or Bob cannot do, while he's coding. So because of the decisions that were made before Bob started coding in the system, because of some design choices, there are things you cannot do or you really shouldn't do. For example, if your system is using a REST API, you probably shouldn't be exposing a SOAP API. So Bob starts coding, being aware of some of the obstacles, and when he faces an obstacle, he adjusts his solution, his idea in his head to overcome that obstacle, but then he might find an obstacle that he was not aware of, and he will continue coding, facing new obstacles until he gets the finish. And I purposefully drew these lines shaky because Bob is implementing everything in the project and the system he's working on. So there are all the things that he has to consider at all times, and it's more difficult to work in a big system where every piece of code has some other dependency. And Bob managed to implement the feature, but his solution is the code he has written is not the cleanest one, and the way he got to the solution is it can be, there are things we can improve. So let's now consider how Alice is working on the same feature. Alice is an experienced software developer, and I try to be more like Alice these days. Alice is also aware that there are some obstacles between her and the finish line. But what Alice might do as the first thing is experiment a little bit. Just do some quick changes in the system and see where it gets her. Also, maybe to be aware if is this a complicated feature? Will it be difficult to add, or maybe one of these experiments will get her quickly to the finish line. This also gives an idea of how she can split the problem into smaller problems, and perhaps she finds more walls or obstacles. She just learns about the thing she's implementing. So after running a few test experiments, going through the code, maybe trying to change something and then abandoning the changes, git reset -- hard, Alice is now aware of how to split the features she's implementing into smaller features. So instead of having to solve everything at once, she now has a few smaller things to implement, and each of them have a start and a finish, start and a finish, start and a finish. And I drew these finish dots as dots purposefully because since they are smaller problems, Alice is much more aware exactly what she's aiming for. It's not like she is aiming for this big feature. She's aiming for some solutions to very specific problems. For example, if the feature required to get data from a REST API, process the data, and then persist it somewhere, if she split this feature into those three problems, it's much easier for her to know what she's exactly aiming for. So figuring how to get the right data from the external API it's much easier to solve such a small problem than working on everything at once. Each of these problems obviously also has some obstacles. There are things Alice cannot do because of the system she's working in, or because of, for example, how the external API is working. But since she's working with those small problems, it's much easier for her to find these obstacles and then get to the finish with much cleaner solutions. And she should be also able to do it quicker, since she's working on isolated problems. Maybe she's even spinning up just some small projects on the side to work on each of these problems, instead of working on trying to solve everything in the system that she will be changing in the end, like Bob did. So now, after Alice has solved all of these small problems, she has the solutions to all of the problems that put together will allow her to easily implement her feature. And that allows Alice to implement a much cleaner solution than Bob did. Another thing that I like to put into this metaphor is that these days I prefer to get feedback quickly, and I value it a lot, just like Alice as the experienced software developer does. So getting feedback quickly, for example, writing tests and running them, or running your project with specific parameters to make sure that your code is behaving the way you actually expect it to behave, helps, because some of the obstacles we might face when implementing a feature, we're not aware of them until the moment when we actually run our code. So if we think about Bob's solution to this problem, it might be that he actually faced an obstacle here, but he wasn't aware of it because his code compiled, but he never ran it with the right data to test it, and it's an obstacle, an error that only happens in runtime. Whereas if you get feedback quickly, you're aware much faster of these obstacles.